2, the Droid fight score reduction. This is kind of take 2 because when I was doing this before, I know you can't see me today, but I forgot to change the audio settings on the QuickTime, and so it was trying to record through the Mac microphone, so we couldn't hear anything at all apart from the hiss of the computer fan sort of churning. Anyway, so I'm not going to really deal with these augmented 6 cores because we've done that to death, really, I think. So I'm just going to go straight into when we see the main title. That's when we see the Jedi really sort of in action for the first time. And I love the fact that we've got both a Mixolydian G accompaniment to it, which is here, and the main title at the same time. So I'm going to just do those. I'm going to try and just turn the noise down a little bit from this because otherwise it might just be overpowering. Let's just try and play it. There we go. Partly because otherwise if you try and do these things on a piano, it's going to sound absolutely truly appalling. But I love the fact that the accompaniment is with a G, so we have a sort of third inversion sort of chord. And also just sort of rhythmically, it's really interesting as well. Da 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 dee. So he doesn't put the triplet here, but he does put it here, which is just good counterpoint. When there is movement, you try and have less. Where there is no movement, you try and have some movement. And it's obviously all related to the sort of triplet figure, digga-da-da. Then we have another little sort of fanfare at this point. We've got little bits of sort of octatonicism as well. I think that's just so Harry Potter, isn't it? Yeah, it is, definitely. And then we've got our nice little, chord here. So at this point, and really it's more obvious at this in the bass. But it's really a chord of D with just a B flat. Because it's so often in that inversion, we have the D, the main triad, and then the flavouring over the top. Interestingly enough, he does the same sort of thing here, where you'll have a triad, and then interjected with it, he'll have something else. So he'll keep the triad as close together as he can, the sort of the sensible bit. Which is fine on its own, but now with the other bits here, by the way, this is set 22. I'll come on to that in a minute. There we go. So a little sequence here. In fact, that's exactly the same as that. It's just a different inversion. E flat minor, D minor, C sharp minor, E flat minor, D minor, C sharp minor. And then we also have these other chords in the bass in second inversion. D. C sharp major. Kind of difficult to see when they're all horrible double sharps and things, but that is just C major. So we've got this really nice set where you have a basic triad, and then we've also got a second inversion of the triad a semitone lower. So if I put all of those notes together, it's very, very close to this chord, 419, which is just the D major. It's just now with an added E flat. So it's almost as if often he uses like a superset and then derives the chords from that superset into his sort of standard Star Wars chords, which tend to be 419, 420, and then the alpha chord 417. And by the way, when I'm talking about all of that sort of stuff, I'm just going to quickly save there. I'm referring to this wonderful sort of Wikipedia site, actually, and all of this. So we can see, a lot of these chords, he uses 418 actually as a diminished chord with a major seventh, which is nice. And also what's lovely is that they actually give you a sort of nice little précis about what it is. As well. That tends to be a sort of very much a sort of Herman-esque, sort of Bernard Herrmann type chord as well, which is nice. So we've got this set 522 at this point. And then another Mixolydian mode after this sort of nonsense, where we also have the main theme in B flat. So we'll have another sort of Mixolydian bass line which sort of copies it, or sort of tries to. Which changes in this bar, actually. So I've done a sort of basic sort of chord symbol thing, but it's more in 2 parts rather than 3, because we don't really have the missing bit of the triad at that point. So then we have those sort of chromatic notes, which again, again, they're going to reappear in the Queen Amidala cue, which I've just finished doing. We've then got this polychord. Here we go, nice diminished major 7th, or diminished chord with a major 7th. But I do love the fact he often keeps the chords separate. So you've got the upper extension sort of basic triad, but then puts the dissonant sort of note away from it. And actually it's far enough away from it that it doesn't really interfere too much. Look at the massive gap in an octave. So that's 1 octave, that's the second one, third, I guess sort of 4th, sort of 5th and 6th. It's a huge sort of 6 octave span at that point. And then we've got this polychord here, 521. Now, I've been doing a little bit of digging with that, and I can tell you that if I open this, I found something out which is rather interesting, which was that from this 6-note collection, which is derived from this 7-note collection, with the B flat or the B natural. I think that's very much more Star Wars than that one, although it's the same interval class. But you can get all of these triads and chords, and look, they're all 419, 420, or 417. So we've got all of these lovely chords. That's so John Williams. That's less John Williams, although it's still the same thing. Like that. So they frequently reappear because they're all also in this collection 521, which is the main collection for the next cue. That just smacks of John Williams. And what I tried to do, I think one way of trying to look at it, you could think of it in a sort of almost octatonic sense. They're not quite. It's because of this, because of the semitone after this one. It would be otherwise. That would be oct. That would be octonic. So with this one, it's almost, you could imagine that as an F major chord, F minor chord, sorry, and then a C sharp minor chord. So yeah, having sort of F and C sharp minor, which is set 521, really does seem to be one of his sort of favourite sort of polymodal things. 520 is the other one, 522 as well. So that's why the analysis sort of tends to show a lot of that going on. So we've got a sort of interesting, sort of almost meandering scalic bass, or in fact arpeggiated bass, in fact. Like that. So little bits of octatonicism going in there, but look at the little sets. If you divide them into 3, that's just sort of G minor. Not quite a triad. That is a triad, D major. No. So he often has these sort of slightly disjunct lines as well. And also the sort of trajectory of it G, A, B flat, C, D. You know, essentially it does keep ascending at that point. We've got these wonderful chords in the trombones and tuba. So the minor with a major 7th chord, that's 419, I think. Let me just double check. I can never remember. I mean, I should really remember because I've been doing it enough. Minor with a major 7th chord. Yeah, minor with a major 7th chord, 419. So again, they just keep going. 521 contains 419. I think I just said that before. And then we've got this lovely sort of spice chords again, all sort of 419s or 521s. What a brilliant cadence. You know, you're never taught that in a Bach chorale. And indeed, sort of plagality in Bach it doesn't really exist as a sort of amen cadence. It's just a completely alien concept. Here, it's effectively a plagal cadence. It's just flavoured with other notes. In fact, we have all the required notes of an F chord to a C chord. Or that one. And then there we go. So F to C. Whoops. In edit mode. Again. So it's just flavoured. Almost like a sort of wrong plagal cadence. And the context of this, where we've got all of the same harmony, again, don't forget 419 is within 521. And then we're into C major with these wonderful sort of triadic things with trumpets and trombones an octave lower. Yeah, and I also, that's again, definitely a sort of Williams-esque idea. Just by going a semitone below, just to get a little bit of sort of melodic interest at that point as well. And then we've got lots of these scale figures. So we've got the major harmonic, so like a harmonic minor, but raise the 3rd. So that's my normal harmonic minor. And that's my major harmonic. Which definitely gives a feeling of uplift, I think, at that point. So the next thing is we've got these triadic things going on. We've got nice N harmonic modulation. So it ends on a D sharp, which is kind of like an E flat. And uses as a pivot. Essentially, it's a pivot note. Pivot. There we go. Just remembering that thing from Friends. And that is such a good way of getting from one key to another. And I love the fact that he just sort of keeps going on the scale. So he'll just go up to another note. You can keep going. It's a really interesting way of actually modulating from a key into something completely different. In this case, it's got that sort of lovely diminished 5th or augmented 4th modulation, which is kind of strange. Then we've got some alpha chords coming up as well, which is here. So and then it sort of becomes 522. All of these notes are from that. So yeah, F and F sharp minor. I think I just need to sort of try and correct that. Now, that's really annoying, isn't it, in Sibelius? If you've ever found that, where you're trying to edit something, it just won't do it. Sequence up a tone, fine. Let's just run that. Yeah, it's really that he's sort of, again, trying to set up the next motion or next cadence where it's going to A. So he goes G sharp, and then into A. What's interesting is that even though he gets to A, guess what we've got on the bass? We've got B going on. So it has a feeling of sort of suspension, I guess. In fact, it's just an A minor chord, really. It's just using B as a supertonic pedal, I guess you would call it. Because I guess if you just add up all the notes and put the accidental of G sharp in, we're left with B, so that's the second degree of the scale, so... Nice supertonic pedal, there we go. None of this dominant tonic rubbish. And then we keep going with our A minor harmonic. Again, these diminished fifth. And now we have a nice A major first inversion chord. And a wonderful sort of modulation actually as well. But the main thing about this is just textural. The fact that it's all the sort of antiphonal exchange between horns and trumpets and then later trombones as well. Where they're all sort of following each other here too. So we've got a sort of bit of heterophony where we have a slightly changed version of the melody. Which you... I mean, when it's played by horn and then everything else, which is just very unhorn-like, it really stands out incredibly. Otherwise, what would normally happen is that would just be interfered with if that had a brass instrument in it. Then we're sort of interfering with the melody too much, especially those two notes. I mean, it's just a really small point, but it does make a difference. And then we have these canonic entries of the horn followed by the trumpets. It's not quite the same, but it sort of is because it does go to an A at that point. And then a sort of a little reply with syncopated trombones as well. So that little bit here is quite nice. So B flat minor with a major seventh, again 419. Then we're in a sort of proper actual chord. F sharp minor, there's nothing else that's interfering with it. And then... Whoops, in edit mode. And then we're into B flat minor. In a sense, it's kind of a tertiary modulation. You know, we could think of that as G flat. And now it's going to B flat. So those tertiary modulations are always very important in film music. And indeed all sorts of romantic music as well. But it's interesting how it goes there. So it actually starts with B flat here. Sort of. But it's not really B flat minor particularly. It's I mean, it would be difficult to tell. It's mainly because of that. It's more B flat major at that point. And it changes. Here, it does happen... which you could have put the fourth theme here, but he actually delays it. But actually the fourth theme would fit over the top of the F sharp minor to A flat. It's quite clever. He sort of gives a hint of it where we could imagine it being there. But by not putting it there, it then makes this stand out a little bit more. And I think that's the bit where his lightsaber's still going through the double doors at that point, or the blast doors. And now we're still in B flat minor. And then complete nonsense after this, isn't it? Where we've got... 6Z6, whatever that means, is just a chromatic scale pretty much, and just widely spaced with dissonant intervals which seem to sort of work. Again, we've got this drop, and I'm trying to... I know there's a bit in Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. I'm sure there is something like that, and it does reappear. So you've got that drop of a fourth and then a semitone. He doesn't complete it, but that does seem to appear, and I wonder whether he seeded that in this film on purpose. The next nice little bit is this wonderful angular xylophone thing going on, which I think is just fantastic. Just mad. So angular. 6Z44, whatever that is. I mean, I don't think there's any sort of specificness about that. Let's have a quick look. It's not even on that page. The Schoenberg hexachord. Well, would you believe it? It's an actual thing. Arnold Schoenberg's signature hexachord is one transition changed the pitches A, E flat, C, H, or B. Schoenberg. Aha. Okay. It's also a complement of 722. Now, weirdly, I seem to remember that 722 came from... No, that was 721. 722, though. Let's go back. So it's a subset of that. Double harmonic minor scale. Well, would you believe it? Would you Adam and Eve it? So that's interesting. Yeah, and that's definitely a scale that gets used in Star Wars all the time. So even that little figure is somehow related to the seed sets, those 7-note cells that frequently are employed by Williams. Isn't that interesting? I love discovering things like in real time. So that's double harmonic minor scale. And of course, we've got... where has it gone? Well, the octatonic is definitely one. Yeah, these other things, harmonic major and harmonic minor scales as well, 732. So though 3 of those things seem to be things that he uses quite a lot. This one, 732, the harmonic major scale or harmonic minor scale. The next one is this double harmonic scale. And the other one is the octatonic set. But actually, he doesn't use the octatonic set that frequently in Phantom. He uses it a little bit in part, and he'll also use part of it as the alpha chord. And you can argue, I guess, that Italian sixths and things are part of the octatonic sets, but they don't really sound like it in that context. So it's slightly different. But he does use sort of little bits of octatonicism as well, so it's not wholly true to say he doesn't, because that is incorrect. So all of these sort of lovely minor major seventh chords, where we've got A minor but over a B pedal, and then some other scales. Yeah, I mean, just this sort of, it's all sort of mostly percussion. This is just 2 diminished fifths a semitone apart. Like that. So, I guess, would they be octatonic? Yeah, I think they can be. Not quite. Not quite. But it's sort of almost there. Then we've got some nice little bit of octatonicism in the trombones. So basically just E minor harmonic all the way through. So like that. And then we've got these mixed octatonic sets, which are fantastic. So that's one. That's another. And then something else over the top. So when it's all sort of built up, it has this really extraordinary effect. Really amazing. A real sort of chromaticism. But I love the mixed octatonicism of the lower sort of cluster. So it's just like, it's just a different transposition. And then he does something different over the top. And then this angular melody, which is very symptomatic of the separatists, the Droid Federation, whatever it is, Trade Federation. The Droid Federation. But it is basically a Droid Federation, isn't it? And really this is just sort of, I guess, explained in a sort of rather classic melodic sense. Starts off with an interval and goes back within the space of that interval. And then goes back within the space of the interval, and then a sort of going to G, which then becomes the starting point for the next cue, the Queen Amidala cue as well. So, yeah, I've just taken you through that. It is really fascinating. The more I look into it, the more of these 419, 420 minor chords with a major seventh, augmented chords, you know, major chords with a flat six, all pretty much the same thing. They all occur all throughout Phantom Menace. Those sets are come up time and time again, and that's why I was just doing all of this work, because it occurred to me that whilst I'm just deriving chords from this seed set, and indeed this one as well, particularly this version, which occurs quite often in the harp, because it uses all of the 7 notes, that it's remarkable that all of those 3 chords keep coming from it, and in addition to the 5-note chord here, which is also part of the same thing as well. It was just really, really interesting. 522 as well, which is in 6Z19, that comes up as well. And they you know, some of them sort of start off with this sort of rather exotic idea of semitone, then 3 semitones. So that occurs. That goes all the way back to that first cue we looked at, 1M3. So it's really fascinating. The more I delve into it, the more fascinating it becomes, really. So Queen Amidala next, and that's all for now, folks. Apologies for the slightly different video today. I just wanted to make sure I uploaded something rather than sort of really polished it. So bear with. It will return to normal, hopefully next week.